Welcome to Ecommerce Revamped, where we break down the hottest trends, insider tips, and strategies shaping the future of e-commerce. Powered by Miva, the engine behind seamless online stores. Now here are your hosts, Rob Stanley and Rick Wilson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of Ecommerce Revamped. I'm Rob Stanley. Of course, I got my amazing co-host, Rick Wilson, that we've been trying to do this podcast for many years together. And we finally got it going now that I'm working over at Miva. Absolutely love it. Rick, good to see you. And we got amazing guests
today.
Robbie.
Yeah, we do. We have an amazing guest. And I'm just gonna get a side note. I assume AI recorded that audio for the intro.
Absolutely, absolutely. Come on, we are all going AI. We're all in on this. It
sounded like AI did Will Ferrell to me. At first, I thought was that Robbie's voice. I thought, oh, it kind of sounds like Will Ferrell.
So we're a little short on time getting this podcast going, and it's been in the works for a while. So I had to kind of just. Usually, I have in the past used an actual professional who's come in. But
look, that's fine. I think it's relevant to today's topic. Yeah,
it is. Absolutely is. So listen up, everybody. We're going to bring John Lawson into the studio from Colder Ice Media. John's a good friend of both Rick and I. In fact, actually, I met John Lawson from Camp Miva many years ago, and he's going to be actually at the new Camp Miva. But before we get started talking about AI and kind of the revolution of it, how things have changed. Rick had a really interesting story he wanted to kind of kick off that'll lead to John talking more about AI and how he's really deep into it. Go ahead there, Rick.
Yes. So I met John, a dozen years ago or so, and we invited him to speak at what is now Camp Miva. And he was talking about social media selling. And it's funny, that's so quaint today. But John has been on my podcast. This in many ways, this podcast is a successor podcast to my Dragon Proof podcast, and so John's been on that podcast many times. I've been on John's podcast many times, and I love talking to John because him and I can just talk about the industry, and it's just a pretty free flowing conversation. Not a lot of no hype really, just kind of what's going on. And it was 2 years ago this month that I was a guest on John's podcast. And I don't know when he actually released it, but when we recorded it in January 2023. And we spent most of the time talking about ChatGPT, which was brand new at the time. And so this was when GPT-3 had come out. And you could, I mean, it was 3.5, but this is when the first conversational model had been fully released. I was laughing the other day to myself because not long ago, it was right before that the dude at Google, who's no longer at Google, thought that their AI was sentient and they had to fire him because he sounded crazy in the news. But it was all about this ability to have a conversation with a chatbot that felt human. So John and I riffed on this 2 years ago, and the stuff we talked about 2 years ago are downright quaint by today's comparison. And so we want to talk to John about how do you benefit from and manage the rate of technological change in AI. Right, John?
Let's do it.
Go for it, John.
So, I mean, look, you really ran with it after our podcast a couple of years ago, and you moved largely from being a social media selling expert to being using AI to power your small business, I would say.
Yeah, I guess.
John's a bit of a sage of all things small business, so I'm not trying to pigeonhole him, but he's been very focused on AI the last couple of years.
You know what it is? It's because I'm into technology. The only reason why I was in e-commerce, success is because of the E. I wasn't trying to do commerce. I wasn't trying to sell shit. It was electronics. I enjoy, taking stuff apart and figuring out how it worked. That was me as a kid. I would take the toys that they buy me and I would open it just to see how it works. That's just how I've always been. And so when, eBay was the leading platform, and that's where I got started way back in, 1999, 2000-ish, I was taking that apart because it was technology, and we were using this technology to sell stuff online, and that's where the e-commerce came from, right? So I'm digging it. I'm all into the E. Then, of course, social media came out. That was the next leading edge of technology, along with mobile. So, I mean, I even spoke about mobile on your stage one time. It's because I'm always in the forefront. And now I'm going to freak you out. because one of the Mivas, I actually got on stage and I was talking about AI way before there was even, and remember I was like, and I had like the Jetsons and I was talking about artificial intelligence. This had to be like 2014.
Yeah, I remember this speech actually. It was real, and it was clever because at the time it was like, well, these chatbots aren't that helpful yet, but you saw that it was coming. None of us really know when, but you saw it.
It's because the E, it's the electronics. I'm always into that. So it feels like, okay, hey, he was a social media guy, 5 years ago, and now he's an AI guy. No, I'm always on the leading edge of technology. I'm just fascinated with technology.
Yeah, and I would say the other part of your story, for those of you who may not know John's whole backstory, is, and this is one of the other reasons why I think John and I click. John, I think the story was he sold some Elton John tickets, but John sold some concert tickets in the '90s, right?
Yeah.
And and if you're kind of a native entrepreneur, the first time you take something that you don't know what to do with and you put it online and it magically goes away and you get some money, that's a watershed moment for you. I know it was for me too, because like even before I worked at Miva, I was selling stuff on eBay, and then I've been on my side of what John's talking about now for 25, going on 26 years this year, right? And it's the same thing. I don't recycle my old electronics. I sell them on Facebook Marketplace or sell them on OfferUp. I mean, stuff that's not worthy of getting to an Amazon or an eBay. But I always want to know what people are doing with their things and how they're going to drive their business with it. And I think that's why John and I always kind of reconnect on these things and go forward. With AI, what's the most impressive thing you've seen in the last 3 to 6 months?
Oh man, it's probably the speed. I think that's been the most impressive thing, is the rapid pace of change and the speed at which new things are being added on to.
So you're talking about the speed of releases and features, not the speed of the thinking.
No, the speed of the thinking.
Okay.
The speed of the intelligence is an amazing thing. It's like even right now, okay, like what we're on right now, we're on this platform called what's this? StreamYard, right? StreamYard. Think about this, guys. StreamYard came out probably in 2019, 2018, somewhere around there, right? And it was a streaming platform. Not much going on in the world of streaming. Zoom comes in at the same time around. And then, of course, the world stops and comes to an end, and we can't leave our houses. And now streaming really takes off, right?
Yep.
So if you were a user of StreamYard for the past, that's 4 years, there's not been very many advances in StreamYard, right? It's always been, two heads talking. Now, if you look, I'm going to try to point. So it's got your logo up here. It's got another logo up here. We have 2 boxes and 1 box. And then you got a scrolling thing at the bottom. Guess what? The only reason why these guys are able to do that is because of the rapid pace of AI being able to write this kind of code. Because this kind of stuff would take forever to get coded in, tested, and working. But now here we are. So that's what I mean about the rapid pace of advancement with the technology. It's just allowing us to do stuff everywhere that you had to be really an expert in. If I was an expert in, crawlers, that's all I needed to be. I'd be an expert in crawler, and I would implement it on these things. Now these guys that have something that could use a crawler, we could write the code and tell AI to write the code to add a crawler across the bottom. That's Absolutely. Where we are.
Yeah, look, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but like we are it's crazy. A lot of what we do is, a lot of what Miva does at the platform level is modular, right? So a payment module is a payment module is a payment module. The problem is, if I'm going from Stripe to PayPal to First Data, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the plumbing's mostly the same, except there's always still 100 hours of a person, an expensive person at that, figuring out how this plumbing fits to this plumbing, and then writing test cases to make sure the plumbing holds, right? And we think that sometime in the next 3 to 5 months, we will be able to give it our whole canon of payment modules and have the AI do all of that for us for a new payment module. So and right now we're just in the testing phase, but I would say I have very high confidence that in the next 12 to 24 months, you'll see things like adding integrations between platforms go from being a pain in the butt and expensive to being close to free due to the AI tools. One of the things I was going to ask you about, though, John, more relevant probably to our listeners, is this: how much shopping are you doing via the AIs? Are you using it as a shopping engine yet?
I'm testing, little things because of the amount of access. See, that's another funny thing, right? So everybody, once they realized that AI could just go out to their website and scrape everything, they started putting up, walled gates around it, right?
Yep.
So Amazon, let's pull these guys out of the air here, and they've got everything gated. So if I do a search for something on a chat GPT, Amazon's results won't come up. Why? Because their stuff is gated. Stupid.
Yeah, that is stupid.
Right?
I didn't even know that Amazon had blocked them. And I will say this: there's some early technological snafus there where these chatbot robots will blow your website up because they don't have any sense of the size of your fire hose. But here was the story I was going to tell you. So last week, like less than a week ago, I'm talking to a guy who's he's the former CTO of ShipStation, really smart technologist. He's CEO of a new AI company that's like a platform for building AI things. His name's Paul. His company's Bot Dojo. I was talking to Paul, and I said, what do you think about the new ChatGPT Pro? It's $200 a month. And it's funny, at the end of the day, I was already paying $20 a month. The extra $180 wasn't a big deal, but for me, at least, it went a lot to $20 a month. It's an interesting curiosity. I'm not spending $200 a month on something unless it does something practical for me. And Paul said, you got to just try it at least for a month. And I said, okay. So I went and signed up, and he gave me a test. He says, give it a blog post you've been meaning to write that is worth writing, but it's kind of a pain in the ass, and it's not going to move the needle that much. So you don't want to spend an hour or two writing it. And I said, okay. And he said, and see if the blog post is how close it is to publishable. And we haven't published it yet, but I had a blog post like this on my list. And so I went and I spent about 30 seconds writing the prompt. It took about 5-6 minutes for it to do the answer on the new O1 Pro reasoning model. And it gave me something that I had 0 edits to publish. So then that same night, they put out their operator product, which they're going to eventually roll down to everyone else. But this is the thing where they can browse the web on your behalf, both scary and amazing. Mm-hmm. And so I have this old car that I'm trying to fix up. It's an old Range Rover. Not that old, but old enough that the parts are a pain to find. So I need a key fob for it. And I've ordered a couple on eBay and had to return them because they're never the right thing. I have spent probably, I don't want to overstate it, but I probably spent an hour or two of my own personal time searching before I give up an annoyance. And one of the reasons is traditional SEO is like going to, if you ever travel to Mexico, if you go to Mexico and you get out of the airport and you have not booked your car already, it is like an assault. You are surrounded by people trying to sell you a taxi or car service. And so when you go to Mexico, my travel tip, book your car travel from the airport before you walk outside. SEO is like that. I can't find the thing I want because it is filled with hucksters trying, but it also found, not only did it find a website that claimed to have the part, it found the correct part, which I had never been able to find. It turns out the website was out of stock, so that's a human problem, but it found the thing. And to me, that, so the reason I asked about SEO is where do you think we are if you're selling stuff online? How would you recommend you talk to the chatbots? It sounds like one of the things is you make sure they can scrape your site, but what else would you recommend?
To find what you're looking for?
Oh, I'm talking about if you're the store owner. So if you're a small business person selling online, how do you use the AI tools to help you with your business versus?
I think that relevancy is going to be I don't want to go too deep into the rabbit hole of foundational thinking on this thing, and the reason why is because what's happening now is you've got an AI agent going out and talking to, you're basically going to have an agent talking to another agent, and they're going to do all the, communications with one another. They're going to come up with the pricing that will be agreeable to everybody, and then you will just push the button and say, okay, let's go. That's where we're headed. So if that's the case, right, then your content has to be relevant, it has to be attractive, and it has to be very, very targeted to the use case of the end user. I think that's one of the things that we got to get to. And if you notice, and I don't know if you guys are, I keep up sometimes with certain things, but it's like Amazon right now is changing all of their product descriptors. So the requirements are now that you can't keyword stuff.
Oh,
right?
Interesting. I hadn't seen that. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like if you used to have these, 200 or I think it's like 300 characters that you could use. And it was like, keyword, keyword, keyword. So for yours, it would have been key fob, and it would have the model number and all of it. It's like, look, we don't need all of that in the title. And we put it on the title because the way SEO worked, the closer to the beginning or the closest to the end would be where it would, pick up so much. So that's just not needed anymore. Now we just need it to be relevant. We need it to be very succinct because AI is talking to each other at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, though, I want to reel us back just a little bit, though, because we dove really deep into AI. And I want you to start with, John, what's your suggestion for some of these e-commerce sellers that want to get started with AI, but don't know exactly where to start right after this commercial break?
Looking to take your e-commerce business to the next level? Meet Miva, the platform powering seamless online stores with the flexibility you need to grow. From custom solutions to user-friendly tools, Miva helps you create unforgettable shopping experiences. Ready to transform your business? Visit miva.com/podcast and see what's possible.
So find out more about Miva.com. Head over to Miva.com/podcast. We're going to have some special offers over there, lots of free downloadables and some cool stuff coming up. So be sure to check back there. We're on with John Lawson of Colder Ice talking about some incredible AI. We dove really deep into AI. Rick had some very great stories and some interesting ways of using AI, or he is using AI. But John, I want to reel it back just a little bit. So any e-commerce sellers that are kind of listening and they're trying to figure out, like, how do I even get into AI? I mean, they probably heard of ChatGPT, but where do you think the kind of best place for an e-commerce seller to start getting or understanding AI and start using AI? Where is that, or how do they do that?
My favorite, of course, is still, I will tell people to use ChatGPT simply because I think it's a great on-ramp and it has a great suite of tools, right? So if nothing else, if you've never done anything else, I would go out to ChatGPT or another large language model like, Claude or Gemini. Pick one. I don't care, right? And then simply tell it about your business. Here's who we are. Here's what we sell. Here's who we sell to. Here's some of our product, our URL, all of that kind of stuff. And then ask it, how can you help me?
There you go.
How can you help me sell more?
Yeah.
Yep. That's the way to get started. That's the foundation. I look at AI tools as Legos, right? Like if you got a Lego set, there really are no instructions to Legos. Once I show you how to put the two blocks together, all I got to do is let that bucket, turn it over, and let a 5-year-old play in front of it, and it will come back. A child will come back with you with something that they have created out of their own imagination, right? Hey, mommy, here's a car. Oh, here's a plane, daddy. They will start creating, and that's what AI is like. Once you learn the foundational principle of how to put things together, sky's the limit on what you can create. So just get started.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that. I think go and give it your website and ask it for recommendations to improve your website. It will give you good answers. How often, John, and maybe that's where you're going, Robbie, do you think, like, this person listens to this, they do this to their website, they get some suggestions. How often do they need to check back in with all this stuff so they're not getting left behind?
Oh man, you know what? AI is like crack. I don't care. You get a hit and then you're stuck. You know? I mean, come on. So I don't even know. That's an 80s reference. I'm old. You know what I'm saying?
It was an 80s reference.
That was totally an 80s reference. But the deal is, you know, the first hit is free. And they know that. So just like Rick, I'm sure the first time you used it, it was free. And now you're paying $200 a month. And you're like, yeah, I'm into it. So, but everybody's not going to be that tech savvy.
No, of course not. Yeah, I mean, I am a
it.
tech company CEO, so I'm
Right.
trying to be on the cutting edge on purpose, so I don't get surprised.
But I think you
feel
should
you.
have a nice list. It'll probably give you a lot of things that you could start to focus in on. And then I would start putting that into a calendar and saying, okay, this week we're going to work on the SEO on this set of SKUs. Next week we're going to do it on this set of SKUs. You know, then we're going to put together our email sequences. They need to be reviewed. We need to get the onboarding stuff together. So, you know, that's what I would start doing. Just getting a calendar of things that you are going to go in and work on. And every week, do something.
Yeah.
Well, I know when I talk to people about it, like, I think most of them, if they're not trying to be a geek like me, aren't testing it all the time, right? And so, like, what I find it's really good at is doing the tedious stuff.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you have 1,000 product images that have slightly different dimensions and they don't all have the same clear or white background, you're sitting around and you're like, oh man, I got to go into photo. Even if you're good at Photoshop, AI will do it for you. I don't know if John's got any recommendations on tools that work in, but it's like that. Or writing product descriptions. You can ask it to read all your current product descriptions and improve them. Those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. All the time-saving things, all the things because that's one of the first things. If you want to automate something that you do every day that, you know, even a monkey could do it, it could definitely be your monkey.
Yeah, but let's be careful though. So a couple things I want to point out. So Steve Simonson, he's going to be coming to Camp Miva, and Steve said this one interesting thing when AI was kind of getting started early. I saw him at an event. He said, "Garbage in, garbage out. You put garbage into AI, you're going to get garbage out." So, kind of flipping it a little bit on that, John. What about talking a little bit about people over relying on AI? Like, what kind of problems can they run into? Like, I'll give you a quick example. Like, if somebody just says, write me an article and goes post on their blog, it's not
going to be terrible.
Do well.
Or if you make it a picture of a person, it'll have 7 fingers.
Yeah. So John, what have you seen that's maybe, you know, an example of people over relying on it or things they shouldn't do when it comes to AI?
I mean, you know, you got to have a human in the loop. And that's where we're going to be. We're going to become the human in the loop. So I think at some level, you have to go in and edit, review, and make sure before it goes out that it's doing what you expect it to be doing. And then finding, one of the things is AI is very iterative. As you go back and forth with it, it gets better and better. So like you said, garbage in, garbage out, the more you tweak the garbage so that it has a better smell, it'll get better and better until the point where it's like, hey, this garbage is a gourmet meal. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Absolutely.
And it's iterative in the sense that it's contextually aware. So I could say, hey, write me a blog post about a 2025 Mustang Mach-E. And it's going to come up with some context. And I was like, oh, gosh, I really, I want to change it. I want it to be focused on what size rims I can put on it. And it will start drilling down. You don't have to restart every time. It knows what on earth you're talking about. It's more attentive than your child.
Yeah, it's like sitting in a car. You drive a car, you're always doing this, and you don't even know what you're really doing. But you're course correcting very slightly all the time, and that's what you do with AI.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, absolutely. John, what about this? You could go a lot of ways with this, but what are you kind of seeing maybe in the AI world or that AI world that maybe is coming up in the future that could be a help to some of the e-commerce sellers, whether it's a visual or a text-based thing? Like, what have you seen that's kind of the next thing coming up soon here?
You know, I don't know if it's really next thing. I think it's already available. However, it's not accessible yet. And it is the ability, I think, to answer my customer inquiries, both inside the email and on the site. All right. So chatbot, somebody put up this recent thing that said that, like, this is crazy. I want to say it was 68% of all sales were in fourth quarter were driven with chatbots. Now, I thought that was ridiculous. I thought that was absolutely stupid. However, they didn't really qualify what they meant.
It's not necessarily closing the sale, but they might be throwing
it's not about closing the sale, but it's like a lot of people have used search to find the thing that they're looking for. And a lot of times we have chatbot search on a site. So it's like, I'm on the site, chatbot pops up. Oh, do you have that in blue? And all of a sudden it brings you the blue one. It's like, okay, I get it now, but that's where I think we are right now. I think adoption rate is going to get greater and greater, because if you feel this way, man, if I'm on a site and I need some sort of support, and you know what people want, what's the number one question people ask any e-commerce? Where's my stuff? Right? Or has it shipped yet?
Has it shipped? When will I get it? Where
exactly.
Is it? Any variation on those questions?
That is so easy to do with artificial intelligence. People don't care if a robot's telling them or if a human's telling them. As long as the information is correct and relevant, they're going to be happy with that. I really think that for e-commerce, if you're not able or have not really looked at some of these tools that will pull that kind of information and that kind of data internally and externally, right? Because you can build this kind of chatbot on your site. You can use it internally for your customer support. Also, you can use, or for your customer support people. And of course, you can use it externally when a human is on the other side looking, or a customer on the other side looking for that information. I really think that is such a time saver. It matter. Oof, man, I just remembered some of the stuff I used to do. I got here as a person that was supposedly a speaker simply because I did that. People would ask me how to fold a bandana, and I made a video. And every time they asked me, I just go watch the damn video on YouTube. And that video got so much traffic, and we got so many sales from that video. It was crazy. It was because it was the content that they needed at the time they needed it. When they were looking to make that purchase, they'll make the purchase. I think that's huge.
I think that's
a good point. Yeah.
I had never used so Amazon has Rufus in their app, and I think on the website. And Rufus is their data that they put into Claude because they're an investor in Anthropic. And I had seen it in there, and most of the stuff I order on Amazon is commodity, right? Like I'm refilling some soap or something. Like it's stuff that keeps me from going to the grocery store or Walmart or Target when I don't want to go. And so most of the purchases I make on Amazon aren't that exciting, but this silly Range Rover I was telling you about, I need a car stereo for it. And I was searching for a CarPlay car stereo with some certain things. And the actual Amazon search is still as crappy as ever. It recommended me a car stereo that I kind of liked, but then I asked its Rufus, is this size or that size? And Rufus knew the right answer. So it helped me not order the wrong thing. And you're right. It's when you're looking to make the buy. I don't care about that information any other time except at that moment.
And if you can give me that kind of information, that's going to be the difference between me buying from you or continually searching and seeing somebody else.
Yeah,
100%.
That's the difference between a search and a buy. Yeah, good.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, and then I'll stop stepping on Robbie's toes here. But one thing Miva's done is we have more than 2,000 pages of user docs, and most of our user docs are actually better than most people would think. Sometimes, if it's older, the screenshots may be a little out of date, but we spent a lot of time and money over the years building the content. And the problem is it's a bit of water everywhere and not a drop to drink. unless you care about that particular document, the moment you're looking for it, you can't find anything. And so we fed all of this stuff into that chat platform I was telling you about earlier, Bot Dojo, and we had it create a universe of our docs. And we have a chatbot, both virtual, you can even call the thing if you want, and it helps you find the thing you're looking for when it matters. And it is, in my entire history of running this company and being involved in this company, in 25 years, we've never had a way to crack that problem. And suddenly, as long as you're willing to ask the question, we can help you find the answer. And it also helps us find out the docs you need to write, because you see all the failed searches, and then you're like, oh shoot, John keeps searching for how to do blah, and he's right, we don't have a doc for it.
Knowledge bases.
Absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, that knowledge base and some of those videos for that knowledge base are coming to our YouTube channel soon, because I'll be working on that. I do want to pivot a little bit, though. Great information, John and Rick. Appreciate you jumping in with a lot of good stories. But John, I'd like everybody to know a little bit more about yourself and Colder Ice Media. And of course, they're going to be able to see you. I'm going to throw this up on the screen. Head on over to campmiva.com if you want to come meet John in person in March 10th, 11th, 12th, down in sunny San Diego. So get out of that cold weather and come on out. But John, tell us a little bit about yourself and Colder Ice Media.
Yeah, bro. I am a 20-year vet, I guess, at this point. I finally exited my business at the end of last year in the e-commerce space, which is kind of crazy that I've been doing this for so long. But also, I'm a small business coach, consultant, mentor, and I help a lot of small business owners implement AI solutions in their business.
Absolutely. And John, tell everybody, for those that are watching, it's up on the screen, but for everybody listening, how do they get a hold of you?
You go to John at johnlawson.com. That's, of course, my email, or just search for Colder Ice. One word, COLDERICE, anywhere. I did it yesterday on ChatGPT and said, who is Colder Ice? You'll find me. I don't care where you do it. One word.
Absolutely. So yeah, head on over to Colder Ice Media or search Colder Ice. And if you want to email John directly, it's John at johnlawson.com. You can get a hold of John that way. And then of course, come on out to Camp Miva. Take a look at campmiva.com, and John will be out there. He'll be talking more AI up on stage. We have a big lineup of AI people this year.
And AI features to show off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's AI built into Miva also. So we're not leaving that behind, and everything will be focused on walking away with actionable items. So any e-commerce sellers are looking to use AI and walk away with actionable items off of the show, that's going to be us. We're going to definitely have that set up, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. John, thank you so much for coming on the very first Ecommerce Revamped episode. And, it's crazy. You get 3 people that do podcasts all the time and do videos all the time, and we just step all over each other, but we still somehow make it all work and come together. So absolutely love it. So yeah, everybody also head over to miva.com/podcast. Check out the free tools and tips and things we're going to have over there. John, I really appreciate you coming on, and everybody stay tuned for the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to Ecommerce Revamped. Ready to take your e-commerce business to the next level? Visit Miva.com for the tools to build seamless online stores and unforgettable customer experiences. Until next time, keep your carts full and your customers happy.